Today, we're going to talk about branding. First, let's do a little bit of a name the logo. So I'm going to wait a second and see if you can name the logo, and then I'm going to go forward after that. Okay, so here's the first logo. Kind of a salmon colored paper clip, really, but if you said Airbnb, you're correct. Very odd logo, but it works and everybody recognizes it now. So the next logo kind of gives itself away because it says it right on the front of it. But this was the original logo they used whenever they were just basically a bookstore. That is supposed to represent a river through an A. Pretty basic. So then they changed to this with the big O. I don't even remember this particular version of their logo, but this was the next one in line. And now, of course, we have Amazon that has a big smile on it. They're fast and they've got an arrow there, but it's from A to Z. So they got a lot more clever with their logos. This is the one that all of you who love cars will appreciate. Ferrari, right? I've seen this logo for a long time. No, I've never had one. But anyway, I always thought that that was probably a favorite horse, or they just liked horses or horsepower. I always went kind of that way. But it was actually on one of the planes during World War II. I believe this was actually a German plane, but he had his favorite horse painted onto the side of his airplane. And so Ferrari got permission to use that same sort of image. I guess they've kind of shaped it up after over the years because now it's a much better horse drawing, but that's why there's a horse on their logo. Okay, what about this one? If you said National Geographic, you probably have watched a lot of National Geographic's specials on TV. I think it's very interesting. The gold rectangle. It's supposed to represent a window into the world, which is what National Geographic also strives to do. Oh my goodness, if you don't recognize this one, you've been living under a rock for the last, I don't know, 17 years or whatever. But this is Apple. And honestly, I have always thought that there was some kind of mystical reason that they used an apple. Adam and Eve, temptation, all those sorts of things have gone through my mind. But it was actually they were working on the Macintosh, the first computer that Apple came out with. And Steve Jobs just happened to be eating an apple at the time and kind of liked the way the shape looked. So boom, they've got apples on everything now. I liked my story better. So, a brand. A brand has the name, it has a tone of voice, how they speak to their audience, how they maybe they shout. You've heard those people that are always shouting about the big truck rally or whatever. That's the tone of voice I'm talking about. There's also a visual identity, which includes the logo, which includes a color palette and typographies. Yeah, all of this kind of goes together. If you've got to have the right color palette and typography and logo design that are always very, very consistent to help build a brand. So a brand is also where they communicate, how they advertise. If it's some of the older brands that know their audience are watching TV, it's going to be on TV or radio. Um, some places just sort of splash it everywhere, hoping that something will stick, and some stick strictly to um, social media because they know that's where their audience is. And part of their brand is who they sponsor. Who do they partner with? I think a really good example of that would have to be Red Bull. They're all about giving you energy. So what do? They sponsor and partner with a lot of the extreme sports people and events and all of those kind of things. They want to partner and show their community that they are putting their money where their mouth is. Um, the product and the packaging design. I think that Apple is probably the best packaging designed products that we have available to us ever. I've never seen a better packaged something where that it's actually as much of an event as anything to open the package because it's so intuitive and it's put together so well. It's that's when I see packaging design that's a part of the brand, I think of Apple. In-store experience. So how does it feel when you go to one of their storefronts? And I'm again going to pick on Apple, not pick on, but choose Apple. If you've ever been in an Apple store, it's an experience that's different than going into any other store. I mean, some try to mock it, not mock it, but copy it a little bit. But Apple has got a very well-oiled in-store experience. I wish we had an Apple store in Lubbock. Um, the workspace experience and management style, that's actually inside the company. Are they a really wonderful company? Are they slave drivers? Are they making them work 30 hours a day? What is their management style? That's part of the brand. And how they treat their customers. Do they put you on hold for like 20 years, or do they get right on it and talk to you and resolve the problem? Customer service, as far as my experience is, I would say one of the best brands out there for customer service is Amazon, because I've had some pretty expensive type things that I buy and they come in and they are not what they were supposed to be. And the seller says, "Oh, sorry, you're going to have to send it back to China." Literally, this has happened to me. But Amazon steps in and becomes the referee and ends up that they give the customer more service than you could have ever imagined. I've never been unsatisfied with the results of Amazon's uh, mediation. Price strategy. Is it going to be really super cheap? Can you buy a laptop for under $500, or are you going to pay $3,000? Pricing strategy is a lot more important than you would think. And you just right out of the top of your head, you probably think, oh, the cheaper is the better. Well, that's not the truth because, again, pointing to Apple, it's one of the more expensive products out there in their particular particular all of their competition because they 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 charge more because they give you more. You can use one of their product so much longer than you can any of the other competitors. They just make a very well uh, built and it just runs. It's well built. It runs. It doesn't crash. Anyway, you get what you pay for is my theory. Product versus brand. So some people kind of get confused as to what the brand is. The brand is sort of an umbrella. So the product is what you're selling. The brand is the perceived image of what you sell. And the branding is what makes you feel the way you do about a product. It gets you invested in the product. And so all of those together make the image that we have of our products that we buy. So you're going to have a project later in the semester about your brand. So I'll explain it more when we get to that particular time, but I want you to start thinking about what kind of brand would you have. If you were branding yourself, which you're going to all be out in the workforce in a very short time. So you need to start thinking about what do you stand for? What can you offer a company and how can you express that so that you stand out from the other candidates? So you've got to have beliefs that will add value to the community or your consumers, i.e. your employers, um, and the society, the people that you work with, and to the environment of the actual business. So you've got to come up with the value that you'll add. And how do you stand out from everybody else that's trying to get the very same job with your clear message? And to really stand up for your long-term mission. Don't just say something and then do exactly the opposite. Those are the kind of things that you need to be thinking about as far as this project that's coming up and what you're in your life you're going to be experiencing very shortly. So your brand, you could be humble or humble. I don't know if the H is silent or not. You could be jubilant. You could be so happy all the time and so energetic that you just make everybody have more energy. You could be serious. You could take everything so seriously and really measured answers, and you're very meticulous. Not a bad thing to be these days. Or you could be charming. You could be the one that is really great for the face of your company's brand. Or provocative. You could be asking the big questions that shocks people, that makes people think. So you've got to decide what you're going to be. There's so many other words that can describe. I had one slide that the whole thing was covered with different words that you could choose that could identify yourself. I erased that one because it's really hard to show you a for you to get any sense of anything when there's that many words on a page. But your brand has got to stand for something. You've got to stand for something. So, brand personality is the way that the brand gets personified. If you're sincere and you're down to earth and you're trustworthy, then you could this is the same strategy that Patagonia tries. Excitement. It's bold and spirited like Red Bull. Competence. This falls into an intelligent, reliable, and serious brand like Volvo. I'm not going to say Microsoft because I do have my issues with Microsoft. Sophistication. You could be like Chanel or Apple because that people often consider those particular brands as upper class brands, and glamorous and charming. Ruggedness. Are you a Harley Davidson? Are you a Land Rover? You've got to be, if you're those things, you're outdoorsy and you're tough and you and have adventures. So what is your brand? What is your personification? So a brand is actually represented through its visual things. A brand is represented by a logo, by the colors and the typography, the kind of images, the kind of photographs, the kind of videos that they show with all of their ads. And the way they talk to their customer is how, with the tone of voice, that's how a brand sounds. And how you act. Are you saving the planet, or are you dumping waste into the ocean? What is your brand doing? Because you have to act the same way as you want to represent yourself. Words are cheap, actions speak volumes. So let's talk about Nike. Nike stands for excitement in a lot of people's eyes. I mean, if you wear a Nike pair of shoes, or you have a Nike shirt or something like that, you look real sporty. You look like you're ready to go out for a track meet or something like that. And that's a very simple logo. The logo means is there's nothing. It's a check mark. It's really not that big of a deal, but they have used all these other parts that go to a logo that have given that swoosh, that excitement, and that sporty, outdoorsy, I can do it, just do it kind of look. So it's not just the logo, it's all the other things that go with it to make a brand. Okay, Apple is sophisticated. I've talked so much about Apple already, I almost feel like I'm going to just be repeating myself. But Apple started out as a small company. I think they started in their garage or something like that. But they wanted to approach the idea in a different way. So they first came out with computers, and those evolved and evolved until finally in the mid 90s, those had become the only computers that graphic artists used. Uh, we just didn't use any PCs. It was all Apple. And then they went along and improved their computers and all that kind of stuff. And then in 2008, I believe it was, they came out with, well, actually, I think it was in like 2005, they came out with the iPod that you could put all your music on. And I honestly had been one of those people who had been waiting, where is my product? I want all of my music in one place. I don't want to have to put in a CD to listen to just one song and then take it out and put it in another one in my car or in my house. So I had been waiting for that particular product. And they became more sophisticated whenever they started with the iPhone. The iPhone had so many things in it. And then the iPad and the computers got smaller and better, and just I could go on and on. And now they've come out with a new iPad, and you should seriously go see this commercial because a lot of people have been offended by it, but I find that it's the most honest embodiment of what Apple stands for. I'll just let you see it. And I would like to, in your weekly journal, I would love to hear something one of these weeks about how you feel about that particular ad. I think it absolutely personifies Apple. Okay. So your brand. Start thinking about what you're going to do for your brand. Because this is not something you can just do in one evening and poof, turn it in and it's all done. I want you to really think about what kind of person what is the personality for your brand? If the brand were you, what would you do? How would you feel and think and behave if you tried to actually make a brand for yourself? A logo versus the branding. A logo is just designing the logo. The branding builds that whole personification of the brand, just like the swoosh for Nike is just a swoosh, but you put all of the other strategies, and that's what makes a brand. I am repeating myself a lot here, so I am going to quickly go over these. The logo is to identify, it's to give you a visual reminder of what brand you're talking about. So you can read all of this. Okay, I wanted to get to this because I want to show you that even Texas Tech University has a branding system. So the Texas Tech Office of Communications and Marketing has a very specific guideline. And I also might let you know that they also police it. If anything for printing, anything that has a double T or any kind of branding on it, when it goes through the purchasing department, which is how you buy things, you don't just go out and buy stuff when you work for tech. You have to go through the purchasing department to get it okayed and everything. Well, the Office of Communications and Marketing actually looks at anything that if you're trying to get a t-shirt or if you're getting a promo item or if you're printing a book or something like that, they look at it to make sure that you are actually following the guidelines. Because if you're not, they're not going to let Texas Tech funds be spent for it. So they are very serious about branding. So let's just go through these kind of quickly. You can actually go through them yourself if you want to. So there's a whole lot of different things here. We've got visual identity system, which includes all of the logos and that sort of thing. Writing guidelines. They want to make sure that you write in the same voice that Texas Tech wants to present to the public. And also web guidelines. I'm only going to go through this pretty quickly because you can absolutely go online and find these things. But I just want to show you what they are doing with visual their visual identities. Okay, so they talk about the double T and how you can use it. So there's a certain space that has to be clear around it because if you don't put these things in writing, no one's ever going to be following them. If you've got it in writing, then you can call people on stuff to not put a longhorn right here next to the double T. It has to have a certain amount of space around it to give it more emphasis. Um, you can do different variations of the color of marks, but let's see if it shows here. They change it ever so often, so I'm not ever sure where things are going to go. Okay, so that's all that they've got here. But notice that all of the double T's have this little circle R next to them because that is a fully registered logo. So they actually make logo packets for all of the different departments. So if you have a new logo request, let's say that they change the name of the student union is always going back and forth between student union and university center. It's I've seen it change several times in my time at Texas Tech. Anyway, whenever a new name comes up for a department or they create another department, you have to request to have a logo made for yourself so that it will definitely be following the guidelines. Stationery, they have all of this worked out where that this is how you lay out um, business cards and letterheads and envelopes and all of that sort of thing. They don't want you to just go helter skelter and make whatever you want. They even give you a template that you can download. The colors, they're very specific about their colors. They call it Pantone Processed Black C, but honestly, what that is just black. That's the same if you call it just black. You don't have to have the Pantone or anything on there. The C stands for coated paper because I don't know if you know this or not, but if you print ink on a coated piece of paper and on an uncoated piece of paper, the coated is shiny and sort of feels like it has something on the top of the paper. The uncoated feels like just paper. The uncoated soaks ink in a lot more and it looks different. So um, that's why they're saying the C. Okay, Pantone 485, but it also has the color formula for CMYK on both of them. And you'll notice that this process black has more than just 100% black. It has 30% cyan, 30% magenta, 30% yellow. That's really considered rich black. Okay, and we have some complementary colors. You can actually use some of these different colors, greens and blues and tans. They have changed these also through the years. At one time, they had a more of a maroon also to go along with this because it matched the colors of the bricks and the roofs of the buildings. But now they've just gone down to the ones that match the brick. They tell you what font you can use. Helvetica Neue is probably the font that everybody uses. I know when I was designing for Texas Tech, that was the font that I used more than any other. There's also Charter as the serif. And it's different because I don't know if you can see this or not, but it has a really, in their serif, it's square. Instead of being rounded, let me see if I can get this closer. Now you can see it better. It has an angle. It's square. It's not like the other kinds that are kind of like a circle. They're, I mean, a rounded corner. It's different. Okay. So those are the fonts, and they have substitutes because they know that not every, you have to buy Charter, you have to buy Helvetica Neue. So if you are just gonna do something one time, you can substitute for these with these other these other fonts. Okay, they have phrases. Here are some of the icons that they allow people to use, but you've got to have that little registered mark or trademark as they have said. And this is a list of things that need the circle R, the register mark. These are the things that need to have the trademark. And if you say any of these particular things, like if you say Raiderland, you need to put a circle R if you're actually going to be in compliance. Let's see. Okay, so now they've gotten out of that. There was one more thing I wanted to show you, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, but it was basically the don't do these things. But I'm not gonna take up any more time with that. Um, yep. So that's pretty much everything I'm going to show you on this, but be aware of this because this is something that every large entity, every large company has. They have a visual identity system that they want everyone who uses their logo or represents their brand in any way that they want them to be using that. All right, let's see if I can get back to, here we go. So let's do some do-don'ts. Don't ignore a client's corporate standards. Okay, we just talked about that. Like if you're working for a place called Red Cat, don't give them a yellow cat. They won't like that. Do's and don'ts. First of all, don't use colors that are so close together that you can't read the text. Okay, that's don't number one. Don't number two is don't use colors just because they're your favorite colors. Do remember that this is a do. Do remember that color plus time can brand. So UPS is branded with this brown. Coca-Cola and Texas Tech are branded with this red, and IBM with the blue. And the biggest don't of all, don't ever work for free. If you decide that you're going to be a graphic artist and someone says, "Oh, that you could do this and I can't pay you, but it would be a great portfolio piece." Don't, just don't. Don't work for free. It's a bad habit, and the next thing you know, everybody wants either a deep discount or working for free. So that's it. That's all I have for branding. We'll talk more about branding later in the semester. For branding, we have a lab exercise that will be kind of fun. I hope you enjoy it. What I want you to do is I want you to use your phone to document the Texas Tech branding in the Media and Communications building and the Texas Tech campus if you're in Lubbock. If you're in another location, I want you to search online and take some screenshots of places that you can find where the Texas Tech branding is being used. And it doesn't have to even necessarily be used correctly. If you take some photos of something that isn't used correctly, you can make a notation of what you think isn't correct about it. So what I want you to do is after you get all of your images together on your computer, put it into one file and then name it with your last name and then zip it. And if you don't know how to zip on your computer, I know that on a Mac, you just do a right click and it will give you an option to zip your folder and then you can upload it. If you need to do it on a PC, then I'm afraid you're going to have to do a little Googling and find out how to do it because I don't use a PC, so I can't tell you how to do it, but I want you I want you to zip your files before uploading it. And just to motivate you to get as many as you can, whoever gets the most images will win a $20 Amazon gift card. So this is due on Sunday, June 2nd. So I look forward to seeing your entries.